Former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Joe diGenova, and the person that the press said would never be back on my show, the author of Trumped Up, Harvard Law School professor, Professor Alan Dershowitz is with us. Let me ask both of you the same question. I'll start with you, Joe. This is from the Comey memo. If there was some satellite, meaning he said I took this to mean associate of his campaign, if they did something, this is Trump to Comey, it would be good to find that out, but that he himself hadn't done anything. That sounds to me like he is encouraging the FBI director to look into all of this, and even if it's somebody close to him, to find out the truth. So A, he's not obstructing justice, and B, he's encouraging the investigation to go forward.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt that these 15 pages of James Comey's notes constitute a suicide note, a lengthy suicide note. It shows clearly that
you do have a way with words, you know that.
He has deceived, well, I mean, this stuff is pretty obvious. He has deceived Congress as a result of the substance in these memoranda. He has deceived the American people, and I must say he has deluded himself. It is quite obvious that the president is an innocent man and that the collusion theory has been ridiculous from the beginning.
And obstruction.
Yes, but these memorandums show conclusively that James Comey knew that from the very beginning. He hid it from the American people. He hid it from Congress. And I must say that as he goes on this ridiculous tour, he is destroying the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I can tell you, Sean, from conversations with people inside that building at headquarters, they are very, very disappointed and very angry.
Well, I want to say something about this.
Who believes that he is destroying a great institution.
I want to remind people that I don't ever want to sweep with a broad brush here. There are men and women that risk their lives in that organization, in our CIA, in our intelligence community, that put their lives on the line. We cannot judge them by the conduct of a couple of people here.
Absolutely correct.
I agree completely. You know,
and none of us has, by the way. Yeah. None of us has. We've all said it's the hierarchy, it's the McCabe's, it's the Comeys. It's got nothing to do with the rank and file. They are angry at what Comey is doing to their great institution.
Look, several years ago, my life was threatened by an inmate in a federal prison, a neo-Nazi, and the FBI assigned 2 agents to me full-time. They came to my class. They came with me to Boston Celtics basketball games. And I really got to just love these 2 guys. They gave me their home numbers no matter what, 24/7. I could call them. And they protected me. They protected my family. You know, I was brought up to love law enforcement. I was a member of the Police Athletic League as a kid. I represent policemen, any law enforcement people, free of charge because we owe them so much. But I have to agree with you, and it started in Boston a long, long time ago when the Whitey Bulger matter came up, and we saw how people at every level covered for him and allowed innocent people to remain in prison. So it's so important to ferret out the bad guys. One of them's now in prison, John Connolly. I have to tell you, I helped put him in prison. I consulted pro bono with the prosecutors to help keep that guy in prison because he was such a bad egg. He was telling Whitey Bulger who to kill. He was telling Whitey Bulger to escape, and he managed to escape for 16 years. And for 16 years, the FBI couldn't find Whitey Bulger. He was in plain view in Santa Monica, California, reportedly going to a Red Sox bar to watch baseball games, and the FBI couldn't find him. Finally, a person from the Federal Marshal Program found him. So, look, I think we have to commend FBI agents, CIA agents, and focus on the problems and where they occur.
Let me ask this then.
Yeah.
And I maybe you'd agree or disagree here, but look at the criminal referrals that have come down this week. You know, the congressional criminal referrals they are citing specific laws that they believe were violated. Then Andrew McCabe and the IG criminal referral. Now we have an investigation. James Comey. I said this before he went on his book tour, Joe diGenova. This is a bad idea. I don't think any competent lawyer would have advised him writing that book and doing this tour in any way. But now he is under an Inspector General investigation here about releasing classified materials. 18 USC 793. Both of you are very familiar with it.
Yes. Well, Sean, here's what's going to happen. This is now, it's all afoot, and it can't be stopped. There's going to be a series of federal grand juries investigating these things, the leaking of the memos to the New York Times, the unmasking of individuals, which was illegal, the leaking of the unmasked information to newspapers, which were felonies, and the other things that involve the misuse of the intelligence and FISA warrants. There is going to be a series of grand juries, and there are going to be charges. I don't know who's going to be charged, but it's very important that this be done the right way, and that can only be done with federal grand juries, and that's the way the Hillary Clinton case should have been handled, but it wasn't. Well, so now we're going to see it done right.
Well, you know, it's so interesting because, of course, this is what I predicted from the very beginning in my book, Trumped Up. Once you unleash this business of trying to lock him up, it's going to come back and bite you in the rear end. Yep. That today you go after Trump, tomorrow they're going to go after Democrats. You cannot unleash this weapon of expanding the criminal law and targeting people without it coming back. You know, there's that great line from A Man for All Seasons about one of the greatest lawyers in history, Thomas More, when they say, would you give the devil the benefit of the law? And the answer is yes, because if you don't give the devil the benefit of the law, when the law comes for you, you will not have it. And, of course, the German philosopher said the same thing when they came for the Jews. I didn't do anything because when they came for me, there was no one left to talk. So when you defend the civil liberties of Donald Trump, you're defending the civil liberties of all Americans, and people have to come to understand that.
I think that's extraordinarily well said. Joe, earlier this week on this program, you said there is no doubt now that there was a grand conspiracy among, again, not rank and file. It's so important to make that distinction, but among people in the highest levels of power with the most powerful tools of intelligence, which they need in a very evil and dangerous world to protect all of us, and that they have abused those weapons for warrants and unmasking. Look at the 350% increase in unmasking. Samantha Power, a UN official, unmasking of an American a day. I mean, is this the biggest conspiracy? You believe a conspiracy?
Well, here's the way I describe it, Sean. It was a brazen plot, which was carried out with this purpose in mind by the Obama administration's senior Justice Department officials and senior FBI officials, which was to illegally exonerate Hillary Clinton in order to help her get elected. And if she lost, then the plan was to frame Donald Trump with crimes. And every single thing that we have seen over the last few months certifies through fact and reasonable inferences from facts that that is exactly what occurred. And if I were James Clapper and John Brennan and Samantha Power and a bunch of people who wanted to unleash the criminal law process on Donald Trump and his family, they are going to find out the hard way that they are now ensnared in the most significant political scandal in the history of this country, where one administration leaving office used the intelligence community to spy on the presidential candidate of the other party. And it's going to come home to roost.
I think you're attributing much too much rationality and coherence and planning to what was probably a series of independent events which, in retrospect, look like they could be coordinated. You know, as the philosopher said, we live life forward without knowing what's going to happen, but then we look at life backwards. So I'm not going to buy into your conspiracy theory, but I do think that we need to have equal application.
You do agree there's been abuse, though?
I think
there has been abuse of power.
I have no question there's been abuse on both sides. That's why I called for an independent bipartisan commission right in the beginning to look at this whole mess, the whole election, the whole influence, the attempt to influence by Russia the election, without pointing fingers, without criminal liability, so we can prevent it in the future. I still think it's not too late for that.
We're going to have a lot of